here on The Patriot. I'm your host, Frank Acomb. Joining me on the line this morning, we have State Senate candidate Leslie Dingsburg. Thanks for being back on the show.
Good morning, Frank. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I thought we'd start kind of with the heaviest topic, which is the recent uptick in COVID cases in our area, Chemung, Steuben, and obviously if you're elected to State Senate, this is something you have to deal with, whether financially or just the public health aspect. So what is your opinion on the recent uptick?
We've all got to take individual responsibility and watch out for our behavior and how it's affecting other people. There's a real outbreak happening right now. We knew this was coming. We saw this coming down the pike, and each one of us has the power to be a warrior against this virus by washing our hands, wearing our masks. Go get yourself checked if you need to. If you feel like you've been exposed, or if you just want peace of mind, you can go get a rapid test. Each one of those steps that you take contributes to a movement against this virus that really is something we can all battle against together.
Because I don't think any of us want to see, heaven forbid, Chemung or Steuben go to red, and even at orange. Right now with Chemung, you're talking about ultimately businesses closing permanently.
Exactly. That's the thing, is every single one of our local businesses is really just hovering on the brink right now. I've been calling since March for the state to step up and do some kind of action for the half of New Yorkers who don't live in New York City. New York City took care of its local businesses with a program that created small business loans and local business investment and debt forgiveness way back in March. Nothing like that happened by the state for the rest of us. And I've been yelling about this for the last 10 months. It really bothers me that our elected officials in Albany haven't stepped up and done anything about this. That's really on my opponent, Tom O'Mara, and on Governor Cuomo, and on all the elected officials there who just have not taken action to protect our local businesses here.
And now, if you are elected to State Senate, what do you think Albany will look like? You know, I can't say at the end of this pandemic because we're not sure when that is, but currently during the pandemic.
If I'm elected to the State Senate, what's going to be different in Albany is there will be somebody in there standing up for upstate New York. Right now, we have had 40 years of neglect. Democrats in New York City don't pay attention to upstate New York. Republicans upstate vote consistently to raise our taxes, send money away from our region that were allocated to our bridges and roads. I see my opponent have press conferences all the time where he's patting himself on the back for various measures he's going to take for upstate. But then when you go look at how he actually votes when he goes to Albany, he rolls over. We need somebody in there who's actually going to stand up for upstate New York. And when I get there, we're going to have that.
And State Senate candidate Leslie Dingsburg is our guest on Frankly Speaking. I've joked with every candidate to an extent. When you got into this race, you did not expect the campaign to look this way, you know, with restrictions and you can't go door to door. But how overall is the campaign going?
I'm thrilled with how my campaign is going. We have managed to change very nimbly how we reach voters. We switched from going door to door to get petition signatures back in March to in the middle of the petition period. We had to shift to start using social distancing to get the number of signatures that we needed. We dramatically exceeded the number of signatures we needed. I think we turned in 3.5 times as many as we actually needed. And we've just kept on rolling since then with new and innovative ways to reach voters. One thing that I particularly love is that we hired a group of out-of-work actors. Actors and artists are really struggling in this pandemic. There's not a lot of work for you if you're an actor. We hired a group of out-of-work actors to put on a drive-in movie musical to raise funds for my campaign. And that created an entirely different way to reach voters through music and video and digital presence. Those sorts of new ideas are a lot of fun. They've been an opportunity in the pandemic, and I'm proud that my campaign has taken them and run with them.
So do you think when the pandemic is over, next time there's campaigns, that some of these things, these unique ideas will stick?
I think that it's changing commerce and our community as we know it. I see so many businesses that have figured out how to do stuff online that they used to do in person. Lots of people who are working from home. Folks at Corning Incorporated, I know, have been working from home, and some of them like it. They prefer being able to work from their houses on different hours, and I think that it increases productivity. There's lots of studies out there that show that if you can accommodate people's work-life balance and their childcare needs and all of that, you really increase productivity. So I think that we are learning some things. We're learning them the hard way, for sure. But we are learning some things in this pandemic that might turn out to be tools for us going forward. But that said, Frank, we really need to pay attention to this. This thing is not over. We are in the middle of, or at the beginning of, another wave here. Our rural hospitals are struggling already. They don't have enough money to make ends meet. The supply chain for products and infrastructure is broken. We're really struggling, and that's on every one of those elected officials who's been there for years, knew this was a possibility, and did not prepare for it.
State Senate candidate Leslie Dingsburg is our guest. I'm Frankly Speaking this morning. Kind of a question I probably should ask at the very beginning, but it fits here. Why did you decide to ultimately run for state senate?
I'm running because I see that our taxes are through the roof here, and we're not getting the money back that we're paying into the system. Our schools get underfunded every year. The state promises a certain amount of funding for our schools, doesn't make good on it. Every year, the state promises a certain amount of funding for our bridges and roads. My opponent, our incumbent, goes to Albany and affirmatively votes to send that money away from our region. We need somebody who's going to get in there and stand up for us, because we're paying too much into the system, and our young people end up leaving because they can't afford to raise a family here.
State Senate candidate Leslie Dingsburg is our guest on Frankly Speaking. One thing I wanted to highlight, because it's been interesting doing interviews throughout the last couple of weeks, because really, at least last week, people could have early voted or absentee voted. And we were talking out there, and I didn't realize this. There's some unique, new, confusing things about the vote. So if you absenteed already, you can still vote in person. Can you explain that?
Sure. The Chemung County Election Commissioner, Cindy Emmer, was on the air recently talking about this. If you voted absentee and you want to vote in person, you can go early vote or you can go vote on election day. And what they'll do is they'll throw away your absentee ballot when they get it in the mail, and they'll take that in-person vote instead. So anybody who wants to vote in person, who, for whatever reason, maybe you want to change your vote, or maybe you're concerned that, the mail won't get your ballot there in time, for whatever reason, you can go in person and vote. I think that's a good thing. I think that our most fundamental obligation here in this Democratic Republican is to hold our elected leaders accountable. Every single one of us has the right and the responsibility to say to our elected leaders, at least once a year, are you doing a good job or not? And the government sure should make it as easy as possible for us to get in there and hold them accountable.
It has been remarkable how successful early voting is in our area. I didn't know how it would go at first, but seeing the numbers from Steuben and just hearing the numbers from Chemung, it's pretty amazing.
It is pretty amazing. People take this very seriously. You give people the opportunity to be engaged and participate, and they're going to take you up on it. For years, it's been very hard to get to the ballot in New York State because it happens on a Tuesday. There's pretty arcane rules in New York State compared to other states. Opening this up and making it easier for people to get in there and exercise their civic responsibility, I think solves the good.
And this may be something you can answer just from your day-to-day campaigning. Do you think because people have more free time during the pandemic that this has been an opportunity for them to participate more, to get more involved, to do the research?
Well, that's an interesting question. I will say, as a candidate, I've noticed that this year it's easier to reach people on the phone than it has been in years past. I think folks are at home, they're in their houses, the phone rings, they're like, yeah, who is this? I'll talk to this person because I maybe, don't have a whole lot else going on. I also find that, as a general rule, many more people than not are glad to get a phone call from their elected official or from, someone like me who's running for office, asking them what they think. And I make those phone calls every day. I call folks all through this 5-county district and I say, hey, look, I'm running for state senate. I'd like to hear from you. What do you think is going on? It makes me a better candidate to hear from the people I'm seeking to represent. I think it's my responsibility to make those phone calls, and I'm very glad people are picking up the phone and letting me know what they think.
State Senate candidate Leslie Dingsburg is our guest on Frankly Speaking. You're talking to a lot of people, like you said, on the phone, maybe the Zoom meetings. Not put you on the spot, but what are some of the biggest issues that people address to you when they're talking with you?
Taxes. How are we going to support our families? I've lost my job in this pandemic. When's the unemployment system going to get fixed? Look, we knew this unemployment system did not work back in 2008, the last time we had a recession. And when we had a recession last time, the governor's office came out and said that it just wasn't worth the public relations to try to fix it. Every single one of those elected leaders who's been in Albany for the last 12 years knew that our unemployment system couldn't work, couldn't cope with recession-level use, and fell down on the job of fixing it. That's a real problem. People are having to pay the price now. So when I call folks, they're telling me about their day-to-day struggles. They're telling me they can't get internet access. Their kids are at home trying to get online to do online school. The internet's constantly conking out. They tell me that they're not sure whether their business is going to make it through the end of the year. They don't know what the newest regulations are going to be from the state because everything changes every other day. The problem we have right now is a lack of leadership. We need serious leadership to address these serious problems. We need a plan. And I'm looking forward to getting in there and doing my part to implement that.
Now, I'd like to think that I asked all the important questions, but maybe not. But how do people find out more about you? And like you said, you talk to them directly. How can they find out more about your stances?
Anyone's welcome to go to my website, send me an email. My website is leslieforsenate.com, all spelled out, LESLIEFOR Senate.com. There's a spot on there where you can send me a message. The phone number of my campaign office is on there too. Give me a call. I return phone calls. People are constantly surprised when they get me on the phone calling them back in the evening. I'll say, hey, I understand you called the office with a question. I'm calling you back to answer. And they say, wait a minute, this is really you? I say, yeah, I like to make these phone calls. So feel free to reach out, ask a question, be in touch. We're all in this together. I believe we've got a real opportunity here to get a fair share for our region. We don't have to settle anymore, and I'm looking forward to getting this job done.
And finally, people could be headed there right now with early voting, but what would you say to people before they go to the voting booth on November 3rd or before?
Thank you for voting. This is your most important civic responsibility. For you to take autonomy to get yourself to the polls or get yourself an absentee ballot and exercise that civil responsibility, it's tremendous. That's what keeps our democratic republic going. This is a government of we the people, and we the people have to participate. So get out there and make sure you vote.
State Senate candidate Leslie Daines-Burke has been our guest. Leslie, thanks so much for being on the show. I know we're going to talk again before Election Day, so we'll talk to you then.
Really appreciate it. Thanks so much, Frank. Take good care.
Yep, bye.